Don't call her cute, don't call her feisty. She's a rebel, she is nasty, she is brave. She isn't honey, sweetie, sugar pie, baby. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved. Don't you ever say that she was well behaved. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved.
Yeah, Lady Bird is so good. I can't recommend it enough. I think I'm gonna just go see it again by myself.
Did you see it in the theaters?
Yeah. It's only in the theaters, right?
I don't know, but you've got like your
the screeners.
Your screeners.
I know we haven't gotten a lot of good screeners this year.
Your movie.
I got to see I, Tonya this week.
How was it? I really want to see that.
So good.
I love that story.
That's also amazing.
Have you seen the 30 for 30?
No, but that's what the writer was there giving a Q&A, and that's what he like based. That's when that's what inspired him to write the story.
Great.
He watched that.
Well, because when that happened, I mean, we were like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
when that
I don't
happened.
really remember it.
And I do remember Tonya Harding being the clear villain in that story.
Yeah.
And then
But
watching.
she's not the clear villain in the movie.
I know.
I mean,
because there are no clear villains.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some, but.
Right.
But in general, when it comes to women,
right, they're usually a little more complicated.
And I remember watching that 30-30 and realizing like, oh, this is a way more complicated story than I realized it was. And it's such a good story.
Yeah, and it's still unclear like what happened. Like it's not right. They don't really answer the question for you of what happened in the movie, but
good. You
definitely sympathize. That movie also had me crying. Maybe I'm just crying a lot lately. But it was good. What else? I feel like and I saw Coco too this week.
What's that?
Oh my gosh, it's the Pixar movie, the Mexican
yeah.
Pixar movie. It's so beautiful and amazing. You should also see that. I've seen really good movies.
I feel like there are a lot of good movies out right now.
Well, yeah, it's like award season.
Oh, and Christmas is coming up when like people are gonna need to leave their homes.
Yeah, like not talk for 2 hours.
I know. I'm surprised. Usually my family for Thanksgiving goes to see a movie together.
Oh, really?
And we didn't this year. I think we just didn't. There wasn't time, and also my youngest cousin is now 16, so it's not like we have to entertain her anymore. Like
right.
she's
she
just
can,
like
do something.
She can hang with us now, which is really nice.
That's nice. Although I will say we've had older cousins. We haven't had like kids around for the holidays for several years now, and but you guys don't do Christmas. Never mind. I was gonna say like Thanksgiving without kids is fine, but it was Christmas without kids is so weird. It's so creepy. It's like, why are all these adults sitting around opening up presents?
Yeah, why are you guys in your pajamas?
Yeah, why are we all in our pajamas?
This
is so. There's like stocking. Like we all know Santa isn't real. Spoiler alert. But
yeah, if you're listening to this with kids,
sorry, you shouldn't be.
Yeah. But we say fuck.
Yeah, hell yeah. But see, yeah, it's a tricky thing.
But your Thanksgiving was nice?
Yeah, it was nice. I had the week off. Did you finish that packet?
I didn't even start it.
Me neither. Louis sent it in.
I really did not do any work at all over Thanksgiving, and I have to tell you, it felt great.
Really, I had almost an opposite experience where I went to Thanksgiving on I helped my mom on Wednesday, went to Thanksgiving on Thursday, and then I had like so many days off because I didn't have to work again until Thursday of this week. So I had all this time off, and then and I just like hated it. I just like procrastinated and like sat around. And I had some other stuff to do, which I did, but it was like, I don't know. I just don't like having that much free time. Actually, it kind of stressed me out. I don't know.
Okay,
not for me.
I
mean, a few days is okay, but like a week, I was like,
Sure. Well, and you had mine was a little different because I spent a day driving.
Yeah.
And so I was
2 days driving, kind of. Because you broke it up the first time. Yeah.
But normally it's just 1 day driving anyway.
Yeah.
And so like the next day I was pretty tired and didn't really want to do much. And then my 3 cousins were there. I guess 3 of my cousins were there who I really like a lot. And I only really ever get to see them at Thanksgiving. And it was just like fun to hang out with them and talk and like make fun of each other in this Elias way that we all do. And then I did a lot of like cooking and baking for Thanksgiving because it makes my mom a much more pleasant person to be around.
If you help.
If you just take something upon yourself, And it also means getting out of dishes later in the night when you're pretty drunk, because you're like, well, I just cooked all day, even though I was drinking while I was cooking. I've really mastered how to enjoy Thanksgiving at my house, I think.
My parents have it figured out pretty well. My mom does most of the upfront work. My dad helps with that. But then on Thanksgiving night, he gets really drunk. My dad loves to clean when he's drunk. So he'll get drunk and then he'll just clean things.
That's
which
nice.
is like such a cool habit. Like, I wish I had that. I don't like to clean when I'm sober.
I like doing it when I'm high sometimes.
I
can get
just
lost
don't
in
like
my
to do it
thoughts.
ever.
Actually, you know when I clean is when I have a packet too.
Yeah, there you go.
That's when I clean my whole
your
apartment.
house. Yeah.
Like
I
Shaggy,
know.
I think the last time I had a packet due, he was like, I think he went away for the weekend and he was like, so I guess I'll come back to
a beautiful
clean
house.
apartment.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
I know. We need to.
Yes,
we
you will.
don't have a packet due, but Louie and I are like, we should maybe take a few hours this weekend to clean. Our apartment sort of looks like a tornado hit it, but but yeah. So he'll always like clean at the end of the night, but then usually there's a few people around to help. So it's like it doesn't take too long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My mom just loves, like, she uses so many dishes because it's like her.
Dude,
my
I had
mom
to
loves
polish
events.
silver.
Yeah, my mom does that too.
I had to polish like the silver, like for every single piece of silverware it was literally silver, and I had to polish. And we had 21 people there. So I had to polish 20 or 21 like forks,
Sets of everything.
spoons, knives, dessert forks,
Yeah.
and then a bunch of big stuff.
It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. But also do you know Avi? You remember Avi
Yeah.
from New Orleans? She and her boyfriend came to Thanksgiving this year.
What?
Because now she lives in Louisville because she's a doctor.
Wow.
Which is insane. It's like so crazy
That's
to me
awesome.
when I was like, how's life going? And she was like, well, I delivered a few babies yesterday
my
and
God.
this and that. And she was like, how about
Cool.
you? And I was like, I made $25 in a bar the other day telling jokes. And the
That's amazing that you
podcast
made
is fun.
$25.
That really happened last night, and it was such a
Wow.
nice treat.
Wow, that's great.
It was a real pleasant surprise.
That's amazing.
But so she was there, and then I just took my dog to the dog park a lot.
That's fun.
And I bought bras.
I need to
my
buy bras.
My mom bought me bras.
I need to do that.
They're
I'm going to
so
do that with my
expensive.
Christmas money, I think.
It's so expensive
It's
to buy
so
a bra.
expensive.
It's
Where'd
crazy.
you go?
Soma.
Ooh, what's that?
It's a bra store in the mall.
Okay, sounds great.
I went there, and
There's
they
like
had
a fancy place here where you go and they like tell you you're doing everything wrong and they give you a perfect bra.
Yeah, the
I
woman
think I
who
might
sized
just, like,
me did not do a good
splurge.
job.
I mean, those are like $100, but I might just splurge on like one really nice one and then get like one from Victoria's Secret for like $40 or whatever.
Yeah, this one was buy one get one half off.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So 2 bras.
Did you go
for
on Black
75
Friday?
bucks. Did I? Either Black Friday or Saturday.
Wow,
I think I went on
that's
Saturday.
bold.
You know what's crazy though is like before and like going when I lived in New Orleans and when I lived in Kentucky, the idea of going to the mall on Black Friday was like, oh God, no. It's going to be so crowded and I hate it. But after living in New York for a few years, going on Black Friday to the mall in Lexington, Kentucky, I'm like, there's so much space. Everybody takes their time walking. This is
Yeah.
great.
So there you go. You're welcome from New York for making me
really
appreciate Black Friday.
Put things into perspective for me
Oh God.
of how miserable things always are here.
Yeah. Why do we do
Ugh.
it?
I know. It was really nice to get out and leave.
That's nice.
Although on my way here, I had such a traumatic event
What?
driving here to your place.
What happened?
Everybody was like driving like an asshole and cutting in front of me. And it's one of those things where like I kept getting cut off in the way that you're like, oh my God, I almost hit you.
Yeah.
And that would have been a fucking nightmare. And my adrenaline went crazy.
Oh my God.
And then I had finally calmed down. And I was driving on the BQE and a pigeon hit my windshield really hard and really loud.
What?
And then like bounced off. And I was like, oh, that pigeon's dead.
But it may have died. It may have already been dead.
been like falling from the sky.
Yeah, why it would
It's totally
if it
possible.
wasn't dead, it wouldn't have fallen in such a way. I don't think
Unless it was just stupid. I mean, pigeons are stupid.
they are stupid.
I enjoy them, but I think they're stupid.
So you killed a pigeon potentially.
Yeah, and it was
I'm
just
so
a
sorry.
lot.
That's really scary.
It was very scary.
That's really scary.
and I wanted to tell you.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, even if that pigeon is not.
Thanks, Molly. Me too. Worth it.
Any other life updates?
Probably.
The tax bill passed the Congress, so that's fun.
Yeah, I stayed up very late last night. I'm pretty tired.
Watching C-SPAN?
Uh-huh.
Cool.
I watched the YouTube live stream of it.
I know. I didn't watch any of it. I knew once they had Flynn and Murkowski and all those people. Not Flynn.
Collins?
No, there is a senator.
Flake
is who I'm thinking of. Flynn is the other guy, yeah.
Flynn's going to jail.
Once they had Flake and Murkowski, I was like, yeah, this is over.
I know.
And Collins, I was like, this is happening. And I was like, I don't need to watch. They're going to win.
I know. It's just I got home at the right time where I was just like, well, I might as well see who smirks when they say this happened. And I mean, there was, of course, like part of me that was hoping it was going to be another like
the healthcare thing.
Yeah, a dramatic moment when McCain puts his thumbs down.
Oh my God.
But it wasn't. It was just brutal and sad.
Yep.
So
anyway,
so
speaking of brutal and sad, want to talk about history?
I know.
By the way, you're listening to Well Behaved. I'm Molly Ruben-Long.
I'm Ariel Elias.
And this is a podcast about women in history who you probably have never heard of.
We certainly hadn't.
No. But I don't remember whose turn it is because
I think
took a week off.
Yours first. I know. It's really nice to be back.
Good.
Mine is sad. Just a heads up.
Oh, mine's medium. Mine's kind of medium. I wrote it this morning.
Me too. We had 2 weeks off and we both wrote them this morning.
No, I know. Typical. Okay, so my my person is Dorothea Dix, Dorothea Lind Dix. She was born in Hampton, Maine in 1802. Her father was a traveling Methodist preacher who was often away.
The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man.
Yeah, exactly. But she was the daughter of a preacher
man.
Her mother suffered from debilitating bouts of depression.
Ugh, don't we all?
Yes. Which informs her later work. Foreshadowing. She was the oldest of 3 kids. So from a young age, she ended up kind of running the household and taking care of her siblings. Her dad was strict, sometimes volatile, and prone to alcoholism and also depression. But he did teach her to read, which was not always the case.
Yeah.
And so that turned into her love of books and learning. But overall, she had kind of a rough childhood. At the age of 12, she moves to Boston to live with her wealthy grandmother, who kept encouraging her to learn. And as a teenager, sort of / young woman, she established a series of schools in Boston and Worcester, Massachusetts. I think she first started teaching at 14, even though she had kind of like an on and off again relationship with school, but she kind of like taught herself through reading and then opened these schools when she was 14. But this is a very common thing around this time, I think, like in the 19th century.
Yeah, somebody teaches you the letters and then they're like, all right, kid, it's
you're
up
a
to
teacher
you now.
Yeah.
And then you just find a wealthy old lady who's just like, keep going.
You can start the school in my house.
I love like the idea of a wealthy woman in the 1800s and just seeing what they do with it. That's my favorite.
I know, that is really a lucky situation. A privilege, if you will. So she designed her own curriculum and administered the classrooms. But by the 1820s, she kind of had... different sources just said she had poor health. One source I saw said that they think that was maybe depression as well, because it was like a lot of coughing and fatigue, especially in the winter. And you're like, maybe that's depression too. Mm-hmm. But basically some kind of like mental breakdown, or I don't know. But she had some kind of poor health.
It's like, did you watch the Lady Gaga documentary?
Fibromyalgia.
Where, but also like she just feels all of her feelings and cries a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably similar vibes. So she, as she's kind of like, as the school thing is kind of like wrapping up, she's writing, she writes some pamphlets and some books. She writes one that's for like a book of facts for school teachers called, this is a very catchy title, Conversations on Common Things, semicolon or comma guide to knowledge colon with questions. Like what? Which is like a conversation between a mother and a daughter, directed at young women teachers, which is most teachers. It reflected her belief that women should get an equal education, and it actually did pretty well. It like sold pretty widely. She also wrote some books of poetry and fiction with moral lessons, which also sold pretty well.
Moral lessons.
Yeah, I don't know what her moral lessons were, but by 1836, her health problems caused her to close her final school for good. And that same year, 1836, she traveled to England with some friends. In England, she was staying, and she traveled to England on the suggestion of her doctor because she had this like sickness or whatever.
Yeah, you know how the England weather will really cheer you up.
Yeah, I don't know that it was the right thing, but I think it's also it's like what does that mean? Just live somewhere else? I guess she just whatever. Doctors in those days were like, I don't know, try traveling.
I don't know. I think either travel or maybe leeches.
Yeah.
It's really your choice.
One or the other.
Have you tried bloodletting?
Was that still a thing in that late?
I don't know. Penicillin wasn't.
Penicillin.
So
was
I
not.
just assume before
Bloodletting
then they were like, she has the vapors.
There's a woman on Real Housewives of Orange County several seasons ago who tried to bring leeches back and like was at a party with leeches on her stomach. It's a great show. Anyway, so in England, it was really gross. In England, she stayed with a politician / reformer, and she met a former prisoner named Elizabeth Fry and the founder of the York Retreat for the Mentally Ill named Samuel Tuke. And so these people in England, she basically learns about like reform movements and about the prison system and about mental health. And this is where she sort of like gets inspired.
A lesson?
Yeah, she took a lesson, baby. So she,
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's good. So she like gets inspired by these people and returns home, and she's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make this my mission in life." So she gets interested in the new approaches to the treatment of mental health, and she ends up taking a voluntary teaching job, teaching Sunday school to female inmates at the East Cambridge prison, where she is confronted by abysmal, inhumane conditions, very unhygienic. Violent criminals were housed next to mentally ill people. They were subjected to the whims and brutalities of their jailers. The reports included prisoners being flogged, starved, chained, physically and sexually abused, etc. Just like the worst possible conditions. And so she took detailed notes of all of these conditions and began advocating for change. She visited every public and private prison that she could and recorded everything. And eventually she ended up presenting her findings to the Massachusetts legislature and demanding that they take action towards reform. And when I say she presented her findings, I mean that a man had to read them for her.
Of course.
So that's cool.
Because was that like the law in Massachusetts? Or
that was the law in the United States. Like, a woman couldn't like read on the floor of like the government.
Great.
It was like they couldn't vote, they couldn't hold office, and like a man would have to present any findings.
Great. Well, fortunately, in the last year or so, we've seen no cases of women in the Senate and House being told to shut up or anything like that, or to have their time taken away by Mitch McConnell.
Reclaim your time, baby. So anyway, so people are like shocked when they learn about these conditions. I think especially because of the inmates, some of the inmates that were being treated so badly were women, and I think that there's like this this thing of like, we're supposed to protect women, and so that made it even more shocking. So I think she kind of played into that hand, being like, really, I think she was advocating for all of the people there who were all, I think, white, so let's be clear about that. But
right,
but but I think she came in at like, how, like, you should be ashamed, like, we're treating women like this. So they're so shocked, and she sort of was the start like she's the person who kind of started the movement to improve conditions for the mentally ill. As a result of a man presenting her findings at the Massachusetts legislature, funds were set aside for the expansion of the state mental health hospital in Worcester.
And they've never been expanded since.
Probably not. And basically, like, she was fighting against the very pervasive idea at the time that mental illness couldn't be cured and couldn't be helped. Like, at that time, they were like, whoop, okay, you're done. Like, that's it. Like, there was no, like, fixing it. And she was like, no, I think we could do things. So she achieved similar reform in Rhode Island and New York, eventually going across the country to states like Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, Maryland, Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, and North Carolina, all over the country. And she also like took her work to Europe and was very active in the mental health reform movement over there as well. At this point in time, the war breaks out, the Civil War, and she, a week after the war starts, she volunteers with the Union. She's like, whatever I can do to help.
Great. Good side.
There was one thing that I saw that said that she never explicitly supported the abolitionist movement, and that some people say her views on slavery weren't great. Sure. So I don't know, like, that was just like one line. It didn't say what she thought of it, if she was like whatever, but she was on the side of the Union, which, I mean, she's from New England, so it's not that surprising. But anyway, but she does volunteer, which is cool, and she does help the war effort. In April 1861, she arrives in Washington, and they assign her to basically be the superintendent of female nurses.
Ooh, I bet she had so many keys.
Dude, she was just key after key. But she was the first woman to serve in such a high capacity position, like a federally appointed position. So it was pretty cool. Like, it was a big responsibility for a woman. And basically her job was to organize and outfit the Union Army hospitals and oversee the nursing staff. So, there was all these supplies being donated, tons and tons of supplies being donated, and she was the one to sort of manage and organize the flow of them. And in addition to being the supervisor of the nurses. Ooh, a little
Bamba break.
Oh yeah. Beautiful. This is kind of a fun fact. Louisa May Alcott worked under her during the Civil War as a nurse.
Who's that?
She's the one who wrote Little Women.
Oh, okay.
Pre-Little Women.
I tried to read that.
Yeah, it wasn't for me.
I think I might have also been too young when I read it, because it's something that they're like, when you're like 9 or 10, you should read. And it's like, no, you shouldn't.
I liked Harry Potter. Anyway, but whatever. She's like a famous author. And according to Louisa May Alcott, which is like similar to what other people said, she was very like, she said that Dorothea Dix was very well respected, but not very well liked.
Yeah, that's typical.
And that people kind of steered clear of her. She often had clashes with Army officials and was feared / disliked by the other nurses.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like she was like not the most fun person to be around. She was kind of a bitch, but I don't know if it was like in what kind of way. She didn't have like the social skills for like a managerial job like that. Like, she was an agitator, a reformer, and not someone who should be like dealing with bureaucracy probably. So she was ousted from the job in 1863 and sent home. This was a little bit of a bummer for her. Oh wait, I forgot something. Before the war in 1848, she asked Congress to grant 12 million acres of land as a public endowment to benefit the mentally ill, the blind, and the deaf. Both houses of Congress approved it, but then it was vetoed in 1854 by President Franklin Pierce.
Boo,
I didn't even know that was a president.
I
I know. He was only president for 4 years, like pre-Civil War, like right like in the 1850s. Yeah.
What a little bitch.
Yeah, so that
you couldn't
sucks.
prevent a civil war and you vetoed that?
Yeah, that dude sucks.
And nobody remembers you.
Franklin Pierce, I've never even heard of. Taft, I've heard of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard of him because he got stuck in the tub, but like even the other ones, like Garfield or
there's some really like
probably a Johnson.
Probably,
I would imagine.
Oh, there's Lyndon B.
Sure, yeah, he was one.
Yeah, Pierce though. I mean, don't even remember that guy. Anyway, so she then it was like before, so that was before the war still. She goes to Europe at one point and she's like discouraged because of that loss. But then she meets with Pope Pius IX, who, because of her report, like hearing her report personally, decides to call for the construction of a new mental health hospital. So she was obviously very persuasive and anything. Okay, so
she
we're
networked her way
she's
into finding
a networker.
funding.
She's very convincing because of, well, I mean, the situation was pretty abysmal, so it wasn't that hard for her to like be like, hey, this isn't right. So anyway, so after the war though, she decides to go back.
Job. Okay.
Yeah, she loses its job, and she's kind of disenchanted with America for a minute because of that experience. Yeah, exactly. She knew it was coming. So she travels to Europe again, and she just kind of is this, she's a writer and an activist and kind of lends her voice and her ideas to this reform movement, both in Europe and the United States. At this point, it's like a real movement that's happening, and you know, she is on the forefront of reforming treatment for the mentally ill. I saw one source that said there were over 30. Please do not take a picture of me like this. No, you will not be posting that.
What if, can I just take a picture of your notes?
Sure.
Okay, got it.
I am not
the people
in a
need to
position
know
to be photographed.
Sorry, continue.
Anyway.
You look adorable.
Wait, will you take a picture of this page of
Yeah.
notes? The other one had a secret.
I know
thing
you're
on
in
it.
your jammies, but you look very,
Thanks. I am in
very
my
cute and
jammies.
cozy.
All right. Well, I feel like social media presence should be a lot more subtle than that was, but whatever.
Whatever. Go like the Facebook page,
Yeah.
Well Behaved Podcast. Leave us a review. I'm doing it in the middle now, so you can't skip it.
Yeah, don't skip it.
Find us on Twitter, Well
I
Behaved
mean, you could
Pod.
fast forward the 15 seconds,
But don't.
but don't do that.
Continue.
Okay, so I'm almost done. Basically, overall, she she helped like redesign or create over 30 hospitals based on her ideas. In 1870, she got malaria and couldn't really travel.
Shit.
And but she still kept writing and stuff like that. And then in 1887, she died at the age of 85 in a New Jersey hospital that she had helped establish in her was established in her honor like 40 years earlier. And she's buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I would love to read some of her malaria writings.
Yeah,
Just
those
like-
are probably.
Just suffering from a fever and hallucinations and writing it all down.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was the most psychedelic time of her writing. But yeah, so that's Dorothea Dix. She was, potentially problematic when it came to slavery and stuff, but she did work for the Union, so.
And she established mental health hospitals.
She did. Like,
and
she was a
like-
big reformer for mental health. That's the main takeaway.
Like, who was the guy who went like undercover? Was it Geraldo Rivera? God, I hope not.
I don't know. Oh wait, do you mean like
Somebody like in the last 20 years maybe who like went undercover at mental hospitals and was like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, I feel like that happens like every 10 years.
Yeah.
Someone's like, and this is because it's still not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's better than them. I mean, not really. I was about to say it's better than being thrown next to prisoners, but there's still so many mentally ill people who are just imprisoned.
Yeah.
But, it's maybe slightly better, but not much better. It's a problem for sure. For sure, a problem.
Well, that was great though.
yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah,
She was just like, this is a problem. I'm going to use the skills that I have and I'm
Yeah.
going to change this.
Oh yeah, and I forgot also to mention that at some point her grandmother dies and leaves her an inheritance, and that's kind of how she's able to like be a full-time reformer and volunteer for the army and stuff. So but she used, it's not like she just like had teas or whatever. She like
No, she used her money for
her
good.
inheritance pretty well, I'd say. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Normally I have my computer, and I do have my computer, but it's been acting weird lately. So I'm going to read this off of my phone.
Wow.
But basically, when I was in Kentucky, I took my dog to this like beautiful dog park every day, and it was so nice, and it was so big. Like, it used to be a horse farm, and now it's a dog park, and it's so beautiful. And it's the one thing that my neighborhood now does not have is a dog park. And it's something that I really missed about when I lived in Bushwick. Was there was this really nice dog park at the Maria Hernandez Park. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, I don't really know who Maria Hernandez was.
Jackie told us.
He's sort of, and he like I kind of like knew this the synopsis
story,
of what happened. Like I just knew. I mean, spoiler alert, she was murdered.
Yeah.
And so I just knew that there was like this woman who was murdered trying to fight drugs, but that's really it. So I looked into her story. I wanted to find out like who she was. Her story. But also like I got really curious about Bushwick itself, which is probably something I should have done when I lived there.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I for sure was somebody who like gentrified that neighborhood a little bit when I lived there. Cause it's like, if you don't know, Bushwick is this like sort of hipstery mecca for like artists or whatever. Cause rent is still fairly cheap and you're not so far away from the city. And it's sort of like what Williamsburg used to be before it got too expensive. I know you know this, but
that's good summary.
So, but like most of my neighbors were Puerto Rican or Dominican. It's just like it was like a lovely neighborhood, but I didn't really know much about it. And I think it's okay to like live wherever you can afford to live, but it's important to like learn about the history of your neighborhood. So, here's some background. In 1960, Bushwick was 90% white. Oh, sorry, real quick. What were your sources?
Oh, good call. History.com, the History Channel website, National Institute of Health website, and biography.com.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
so Bushwick was 90% white. It was mostly German and Italian immigrants. And the Germans, when they came over the Germans came over in like the mid to late 1800s, and then the Italians came over after World War I. And the Germans brought beer and set up all these breweries in Bushwick. And so for a while, Bushwick was known as the beer capital of the Northeast.
Wow.
Which I didn't realize, because I just knew there was like a bunch.
The beard capital of the Northeast.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry.
That was good. And then white flight happened. So from there, and I tried to like look up why exactly. I mean, there's so many reasons, but basically from 1940 to 1970, there was another great migration of Southern Black people who were moving north and west to cities. And then at the same time, New York City went bankrupt. Or almost went bankrupt, like tried to declare bankruptcy. The government, like the U.S. government wouldn't let them. It was like a whole thing. And so anybody who was white who had the means to leave the city was like, yeah, we're getting the fuck out of here. But because of redlining, which like we talked about in the Ace of Cups episode, even if they had the money, Black families couldn't move to the suburbs because nobody would give them mortgages. So Bushwick then became primarily Black and Latino because like all the Germans and Italians left. Most of the breweries closed down when beer started being canned, which I don't really understand why, but I guess like local, like beer could travel from farther and it was cheaper because it was lighter than glass.
So it just became more centralized in like a few places in the country or something.
Which is funny because now there are all these like little microbreweries.
Yeah, but that didn't seem like that seemed like a cultural thing less than like a necessity thing. Like you know what I mean? Like it was like
and it's also
hoppy. Ooh, hoppy.
Right, and I think it's a reaction to like the
mass
big
breweries,
right?
Yeah.
And it's also just a reaction to like white dudes not having enough hobbies, I think. So,
so many hobbies.
So Bushwick became
Frisbee. Okay.
Clipping their, I don't know, tattoos or whatever.
Clipping their tattoos.
No, I was going to start saying one thing and then I bailed. And so I just said tattoos.
Okay.
I was going to say clipping their facial hair in a specific way, but then I felt like it was too close to your beard comment. And I was trying to
expand. No, I appreciate it.
Okay, so
this is real behind the scenes of the process, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so Bushwick becomes primarily Black and Latino.
Okay.
And then at the same time, New York started raising, or not in New York, in Bushwick specifically, they start raising the rent for welfare recipients. So if you receive welfare, there was one guy, I forgot to write down his name, but he was like some law policy person who made it so that these buildings would accept people on welfare but raise the rent.
What?
Yeah. Which
Doesn't seem
means
legal.
that anybody not on government assistance couldn't afford to live there anymore. So Bushwick becomes this neighborhood
Of people on
on government assistance.
And you don't want to get off of government assistance because then you lose your apartment.
Right, because they can't afford to.
Jesus. So stupid.
And then the blackout of 1977 happened, which I want to find a way to cover at some point because that's such a crazy thing that happened. My parents were here for that.
There was a blackout more recently than that.
Yeah, in like 2003 or 4.
Yeah, we were at the San Diego Zoo. We were on
Really?
vacation and we were at the San Diego Zoo. My great grandmother was still alive at the time and she lived across the hall from us. And she was not at the San Diego Zoo. She was like in her 90s. And we were at the zoo and we heard about the blackout and we were like, oh my God. And we were like, what? And we tried to call her and like we couldn't get touch. It worked out. Like she was fine, but it was a little scary because she was just like a 90-something-year-old woman like alone.
Yeah. But New York at the
blackout.
time, like at this time in the 70s was like such a different, I mean, this is when like fires were being, like buildings were being burned in the Bronx for, because it was more lucrative to burn the building down than to try to collect rent.
Wow.
Like that's like that, you know, the Bronx is burning. That's like
Yeah.
what this is from. So when the blackout happened, there was like mass looting, and in Bushwick on Broadway, there's like it's still there. I mean, I imagine it's very different, but there's a strip of a lot of stores. And so anybody who lived in Bushwick and had these stores was able to defend their stores. But anybody who had moved to the suburbs or like, you know, outside of Bushwick who had stores there couldn't get there to defend them. And so when people were cleaning up, those people were just like, fuck this, I'm done. Like, I'm not, there's no it's too expensive for me to rebuild. I don't want to be in this neighborhood anyway. I live in the suburbs now. Fuck you. And so that was sort of like the last group of white people who had stayed.
Right. They were like business owners staying, but they left.
Right.
They don't even have businesses anymore.
And so this then left a bunch of like buildings and houses empty and deteriorating in Bushwick. So then the city started, instead of like revitalizing these places or renovating them or whatever, they just knocked them down, leaving a bunch of vacant lots and like abandoned houses, which of course is like a hotbed for crime.
Blight, baby.
So... okay. The drug war is stupid. I'm just going to take like a controversial position here and say that like it's bad. But so like what Maria Hernandez and her family did was like their heart was in the right place. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of their tactics, but like she meant well and she did do a lot of great things.
So this is like what? This is like the
This
early
is the
80s now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically in the 80s, there was a government program that allowed people to buy houses in Bushwick more easily. And Maria and her husband Carlos decided to take advantage of that. And they bought a house in Bushwick on Star Street. And this is like 1985, I want to say. They had 3 kids. And basically, like, there were drug dealers everywhere. Like, the gangs sort of ran the streets. They were mostly selling heroin and crack. I think at this time, mostly heroin.
Making a comeback.
Yeah. So it's not just like weed, you know, like it's different. It's like there are a lot of junkies.
It's like the bad drugs.
Yeah, it's the bad drugs. Not the fun ones.
Not the rad drugs. Ooh, I'm on a roll with the corny jokes today.
And it is like, I mean, so when I was thinking about this, like when I lived in New Orleans, one of the houses that I lived in, like, I mean, my house was probably safer having those guys on the corner who watched the neighborhood all day than it was having the police come by, because the police didn't really come by that much. And those were the guys, like the guys who hung out on the corner and sold drugs were the ones who told me, like, if somebody was, like, creeping around my house.
Yeah, I feel like I've told this story on the podcast before, but my mom lived in, like, South Park Slope in the 80s, which now is so gentrified. It's crazy. It's like, but at the time, she said that there was, like, always crackheads on her stoop, but that a lot of the time they would help her, like, if, like, the lock was broken, they would help her, like, break into her own house. And, like, yeah, that place was, like, infested with cockroaches and stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she said that they were kind of helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they look out for the neighborhood in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, they have nothing else to do.
Well, and especially, like, when every government agency has sort of turned its back on this neighborhood and, like, given up on it and doesn't care, it's like, yeah, it is the people who live there who care. It's just that along with that comes, like, gang violence. So it's complicated. But yeah, those were the people who, like, when my dog would get out, they would help me they would send their kids out to come help me find her.
The drug dealers?
Yeah. I really liked them. They'd be like, one time my dog got out because there was just, like, a little gap in the yard that she, like, squeezed by once. And my next door neighbors they had a lot of kids, but they were all really sweet. And one day, like, my dog got out and the kids came knocking on my door and they were like, Miss Lady, your dog got out. I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, because they didn't know my name. And then I was like, oh, fuck. And so I started, like, looking for her or whatever. And the kids, like, they were like, do you want help? And I was like, yes, please. And they went back to their house and they're like, Mama, the white lady's dog got out. We're going to go help her. And then they all, like, came helping me. And because my dog would, like, hide under the houses and I couldn't get to it, and they would, and they were very sweet. I really liked them.
That's funny.
They're very
Someone's
sweet.
like, Miss Lady. It's like, no, please, that's my mother's name.
Yeah. At least
the lady.
Yeah, at least they didn't call me Mrs. Lady.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because they knew my boyfriend
Marital
had moved
status.
out at the time. Was a piece of shit. We were neighbors. They heard the fighting. Okay, so yeah.
Oh wait, that's in New Orleans. I really kept thinking it was in Bushwick. Yeah, that makes me more sense.
Yeah, sorry, that was in
like,
New Orleans. I should have said.
No. I think you did, but I was confused. Okay, that makes more sense. Yes.
Yeah, in Bushwick, I also had some
get out.
My neighbors were not drug dealers.
That's what I was confused.
In Bushwick.
Yeah, that makes way more sense. Okay, never mind.
Because boy, did I take advantage of what Maria Hernandez died for. So here's what happened. Maria Hernandez, and she was an accountant. Her husband Carlos would chase away drug dealers from their stoop. He was, like, very hands-on. He would call the police on anyone who would stay. He, like, beat up drug dealers if they wouldn't like, go away. And, like, that's obviously a good way to make enemies, right? And so Maria took a different approach. She started community organizing. She would hold, like, events for the neighborhood and throw parties for the kids, and just sort of, like, telling them to stay away from the gangs and stay away from drugs, which, like, I think is the right way to do that, because like, a lot of times when people when, like, kids join gangs, it's because, like, that's a way for them to feel like they're part of a family. And so if you create a community, there's, like, less of that. It's why, like, community centers, it's bad when they're closed.
Yeah. Do you listen to Love It or Leave It, that podcast? There was a woman on there a few weeks ago when they were in Chicago who...
Yes.
You remember who I'm talking about? I'll look up her name. She lives in a neighborhood in Chicago that had a high violence rate and was worried about it, and decided to just, like, her and her other, like, mother friends would just, like, sit on a corner and just, like, have, like, snacks and stuff, and not, like, be outreachy, but just be like, we're here.
Yeah.
and eventually, like, the crime rate has, like, extremely dropped, and, like, she's just, like, a really inspiring woman.
Yeah, because they were like, when somebody is watching, and, like, when it's a mother figure, like, people behave
like,
better.
Someone there, yeah,
and it's somebody from your community,
right? And you know them, and
they know you, and, like.
So anyway, it reminds me of that a little bit, but that's sort of I'll try and look up the name, but
okay. I mean, I remember there was a period when I lived in New Orleans where it seemed like there was a lot of outreach going on from the police specifically. Like I remember one time coming home and there was a big meeting of like maybe like 20 teenagers, like wow. Ranging from like, you know, like 14 to 22, and there were like 2 older black men who were clearly facilitating something to just be like violence is not the, like, you have to respect each other and listen to each other. And it was like clearly somebody from the, like, their, you know, like right. their community talking to each other. And like, yeah, it was that, you know, I know I try to be aware of my place in all of this. Right. So she was doing all these things. But like calling the police was like a big deal for them. Can you find it?
Find it? No. Okay. Well, whatever.
So, that's okay. Most of the residents in the neighborhood they weren't happy with it, but they took sort of a like, we don't bother you, you don't bother us kind of approach. Because they were scared, and it was like, yeah, you don't like tackle the gangs, and they were just like, we support what Maria and Carlos are doing, but like we can't join them because
we want to live.
Yeah. And even like at meetings, hold on, I'm looking for it now. Maybe I shouldn't do this right now.
No, whatever. It's okay. It's good. No, it's definitely a tricky, it's like takes a lot of courage to like stand up to people. And I mean, as we said in the beginning, spoiler alert, it did not end great for her. So it is a risk, and those people, you know, you can't fault those other people like for not wanting to stand up in that way. I mean, it's, you know,
and they would go to these neighborhood meetings where like the police would come sometimes and be like, we want to like help outreach to the neighborhood or whatever. And people wouldn't say anything at the meetings. Like they wouldn't ask questions or comment because
snitches get stitches.
Yeah. Because I mean, like there were people from these gangs who would like sit at the meetings to see who would talk.
Right.
So it's like there was nowhere. And that's also something that it's like, these police officers and government officials, I don't think realized, because it's like this,
or maybe they did, but it's like, but what are you going to do? It's like The Wire,
right? It's exactly like The Wire.
To say. But I mean, it's sort of, I mean, well, like the police do know, but then like, what are they going to do? Like if they arrest the certain gang members at the meeting, it's like, well, there's other ones that'll just take their place. It's like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like you do different outreach of like anonymous tip lines or like you emphasize that kind of stuff, or
for sure,
whatever. But so like there was one instance where Carlos and Maria suspected their next door neighbors of being drug dealers, and so like Carlos confronted them and he ended up, like, the neighbor ended up stabbing him.
So I guess suspicion confirmed.
Right. I know. I was like, I mean, that sounds pretty drug dealery.
Yeah.
And like after a few years, Maria and Carlos started getting like, they were just like growing tired and afraid. A police car had been sent to protect them, and it would drive around the block every so often. But to me, it's also like, why wasn't there? Like, I don't know. I'm not advocating for a police state. I'm just saying like maybe there should have been somebody watching them, because they were set to testify the next day at a grand jury against their neighbor who had stabbed him. Like both of them were. They were set to testify on August 9th. So on August 8th, 1989.
Everything was fine.
Everything was fine. And the story ended
they slept
here.
Well.
And they were just like, let's just give her a park. They were, so yeah, Carlos and Maria were getting ready to testify the next day. Maria was getting ready for work when a car drove by and shot 5 times into the house. Wow. And a lot of people think that it was just, they were just trying to scare them. They didn't realize necessarily that anybody would be home, but it doesn't really matter. Carlos like dove on top of his kid to like get him down, and Maria was hit in the head and died 6 hours later. Sorry. She was 34.
Oh my God.
And Carlos testified the next day as planned, with what his neighbors described as a renewed determination.
Wow.
Her funeral was attended by hundreds of people, both from the neighborhood and politicians who wanted to use her death to fuel their own policies, which is it's like, ugh, it's so disgusting. It's like they didn't care until the moment that she died and they saw that they could use this. Right. They used her martyrdom for their
political gain.
Yeah, what's the grandstanding is the word I'm looking for. It's like you didn't care about this neighborhood. You weren't trying to the Bushwick initiative didn't happen until the 2000s, and that's really what changed the neighborhood. And that was when they actually put money into like going after.
And that's when white people started moving there.
Yeah, I mean it's like that, but that's what put
because
money.
Williamsburg got too expensive
into like going after slumlords who didn't make any reforms to the buildings, and like who, you know, like it was, that's a big part of all it took was just putting money into this neighborhood and like trying to get this, just like trying to make it a safer place for the people who were already there. And instead, they didn't care until like they could use it for their own election or until white people started moving there. And so there was this is also like what's crazy. There was a 2-mile march through the neighborhood the day of her, like for her funeral, just like a funeral procession. But it was like a lot of politicians who were in that march. Most of the neighbors didn't want to be seen marching because they were just like, that's dangerous for us. Like, do you not like they just didn't understand how dangerous that was. And even Carlos was like, I totally get why they don't want to be in this line. Like I get it. And like he didn't blame them at all. He was just like, no, of course not.
No, it's like, look what happened to my wife. Like, I don't blame you.
Right.
Yeah.
So later that year, the Bushwick Park was renamed the Maria Hernandez Park. And
that same year it happened.
Yeah, it happened pretty quickly. 1989.
89. Wow.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. And honestly, like that was all I could find about her. I couldn't even find like a real obituary about her. The obituary itself was like and all of this stuff comes from different articles written in the New York Times and then also the Bushwick Daily. Excuse me. That's you know what?
For that the fans. For the true fans.
That's for the fans.
Oh.
That's for the one. Yeah, that's for the ones who accepted that we took last week off.
Yeah.
It was this article written by Nathan Wall in the Bushwick Daily. But everything else is just like articles from the New York Times from 1989.
Wow.
And
cool.
Yeah, but
that's
like
a good one.
The obituary like had
Sad
no
one.
information about what year she was born or like what happened to the family afterwards. It was just like, here's the sad thing that happened, and you know, drug dealers, aren't they bad?
Yeah. Like
it's really hard to frame this story. I couldn't just like summarize what the articles said because they were all written in 1989 when it was like the drug war and like these people need to be in prison without realizing like
the reasons why they're turning to drugs
and how to actually prevent it. Like it seems like Maria
investing in education and infrastructure and community building is like the way you're going to get rid of that shit. And it seems like Carlos was just like a man about it, you know what I mean? Not in a complimentary way. Complimentary. Yeah.
There we go. Oh boy.
You did it.
Thank you. I'm tired and had a lot of coffee.
I know. And I can't believe you drive so many hours.
Yeah, but that'll be fun.
It will be fun. But I mean, is it 5 hours each way?
Yeah. But we get a hotel room.
Oh, you're staying over.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank God. I was about to be like,
no.
Ariel.
No.
Ariel's doing a show out of town. I don't think we mentioned that. Yeah. But
upstate New York, baby.
Upstate New York. I know. Which is so you think upstate New York? Oh, probably a couple hours. No, 5 hours.
So far.
5 hours. That is.
I forget how big New York is.
New York is so big. It's really dumb.
Maybe I'll see Hillary.
Yeah. Walk through the woods.
But yeah. So Carlos went about it in just this like, I'll use my muscles to like get these drug dealers away from this neighborhood, and Maria was just like, I'm gonna talk to the kids and I'm gonna like make this neighborhood a better place for us. So it's very sad, but it's it was nice to delve into what happened, like the history of Bushwick.
And how Maria Hernandez got a park named after her.
And it's a beautiful park.
Yeah. My brother lives right across the street.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
He lives on Star Street.
Huh. Yeah.
There you go.
So that's the story of Maria Hernandez.
Perfect. Well, that's great.
I have a Wonder Woman.
Oh, you do?
Well, Wonder Girls. So every episode we try to highlight some women who are like doing something today that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the robotics team, the all-girls robotics team from Afghanistan. Did you see that story?
Oh, no. That sounds cool.
A while ago, there was this all-girls robotics team that tried to get to the United States for a competition, and their visa was denied. And eventually, like, they had to appeal. I think they had to appeal it like 2 or 3 times, and eventually, like, I mean, basically, like, people had, like, there was a big fuss. There was a big stink made by it in the press of like, these, 14-year-old girls do not pose a threat. No. You fucking fuck Trump. But so they recently won an award.
Oh, cool.
At a robotics competition in the UK. I think somewhere in Europe. Was it it's in Estonia. Sorry, not the UK. They won the Entrepreneur Challenge for a solar-powered robot, which is super cool. And they seem so awesome. And I love that these girls are just like, we'll make a fucking robot, even though robots terrify me.
Yeah.
I'm trying
they
to
sort of terrify me. I mean, I'm not someone who's going to get an Alexa in my home.
No, absolutely not.
That just seems, I mean, I don't know. I feel like an old person saying it, but it's like, that's just a microphone that's on all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not, like, come on.
I also just don't like the way people talk to Alexa.
Really? Well, there's also Google Home now.
I don't like that they
Google.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you should have to ask. I wish they had programmed. No, you like dictate. You're like, Alexa, play like House of Cards or whatever. That's not what they play, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And I feel like it should have to be like, Alexa, will you please play? Like, I just feel like there's going to be.
You should have to say please.
Yeah. I do kind of, I think
That's
about
really
like,
funny.
I find myself thinking about kids who are born now who are going to grow up like hearing that.
With the robot slave.
Yeah, it's scary. I watch enough Black Mirror to know, like...
I know it's coming back. Have you seen all the trailers for the new ones?
No, I haven't yet.
What? Oh, we'll watch them afterwards. Okay. Oh, unless you have to run.
I do have to run.
They're very short. Or you'll watch. You'll watch them when there's like 2 episode trailers that they've come out with. So
I'm excited.
Far. Yeah, they look good.
I love that show.
I know. I really like it, but I'm also so scared of it. But I'm going to watch it because even though I'm scared.
You know what I've been watching? Oh, I forgot. Another movie I saw was Landline.
I really wanted to see that.
It's not great.
Okay.
It's fine. All the acting is great. Jenny Slate is amazing.
Lady Bird.
I will. But
I want to go. I'm going to go again this week, I think.
Well, so it's just like very heavy on like look at what the 90s were like. Isn't it crazy that we use these kinds of phones and like that? Like it's just very... like heavy-handed with that. I mean, it's even called Landline.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But so what I've been doing to get that like feel of nostalgia is I've been watching the first seasons of reality shows.
Oh my God, I love doing that. What have you been watching?
Amazing Race.
Ooh,
I've been watching
that's an interesting one.
And I never got into it.
You know what's a good first season reality show?
What?
Jersey Shore. Watch all of Jersey Shore from the beginning. It is so good and so funny.
I think
maybe we like different types of You like a competition, and I just like a look into the
I like competition. I also like shows where people are likable, where you're really rooting for somebody.
It's really the original, pre-Breaking Bad. This is the original anti-heroes was the cast of the Jersey Shore because you love them and you
the whole
hate
cast.
them. You love them and you hate them, and that is it's amazing. It's like Real Housewives. That's the thing. You love them and you hate them at the same time because they are complicated. But you feel for them. They go through struggles. I mean, there's an episode in early Jersey Shore where a man at a bar on the Jersey Shore punches Snooki in the face. Punches her in the face for no reason, pretty much. And it's very intense. And all the guys like start beating that dude up. And it's very sweet.
That's nice. That's a very Jersey way of handling it.
Yeah.
But I
mean,
just like
it's Jersey in general to hit a woman in the face at a bar.
Yeah. My mom was telling, because both my parents grew up in Jersey, and my mom was telling me about how, like, when she, at some point, the downtown area of, like, the small town that she grew up in was basically run by the mob, more or less.
Yeah.
And how there was one, I guess it was a pizza place, because, like, the mob controlled the cheese, I think it was. And, you know, like, the pizza places, they would force them to buy their cheese. And there was one pizza place that wouldn't, and she said it was on fire every week.
Wow.
Which
That's
is
a lot.
amazing. But so yeah, I've been watching The Amazing Race to see just like when they have to like call the airlines to find.
That's good.
And it's like, it's a nice way of seeing the 90s technology in a way that's not so overt.
What year is that? It's like 2001 or something?
No, it's pre 9/11.
It is? Wow.
Yeah, because based on the security that they go through in the airplanes, on the airlines, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Wow. Well,
so that's my suggestion.
That's a good idea.
That's my disconnect from the
current state of the world.
Yeah.
Well, this has been good. Do you have any show? We should come to the all-female reboot holiday show. We're rebooting the holidays.
It's going to be so fun.
For women on mostly Christmas, because there's not that much Jewish stuff, but we should work on it. Maybe.
There's a Hanukkah song reboot
there is a Hanukkah
I feel like
song
women
reboot.
are going to enjoy.
Yes. That is December 9th at 7 p.m. at the Creek in the Cave in Long Island City. And I also have a show Thursday the 7th at Hungry Ghost in Manhattan at 8 o'clock. So
I'm going to be... Hold on. I got to find it. Do you have anything else for the next week?
No, not really. Just definitely come to All Female Reboot. It's so good. It
is going to be
lots
great.
of rehearsals.
And then the following week, December 11th through the 15th, I'm going to...
Oh, your week at the Creek.
I'll be doing a week at the Creek, which is me and Maria Wojciechowski are going to be doing half hours.
Hell yeah.
So please come to that. It's a free show. It's at 7
Definitely come to
o'clock.
that.
And then I will be in Philadelphia, but I'm trying to, on this Wednesday.
Ooh, for what?
For a show. At 8 o'clock, but I can't find the venue.
Oh no.
So I'll put it in the Facebook group and we'll tweet it and stuff.
Yeah.
So just find it on there. But so if you live in Philly or around Philly, come to that. That'll be fun. And just a reminder that healthcare, enroll for it.
Oh yeah.
Tell the government to shove it up their ass because they want to, whatever. Just enroll for healthcare. You have until December 15th in most places. Oh, also December 12th at 8:30. Sorry, this is all over the place.
It's fine.
But December 12th at 8:30, I'll be at the Irish Exit for Hot Soup for that show. It's a really good show in New York. So come to that. And that's it.
Cool, dude. Well,
call your senators.
Just to yell at them.
And keep making history.
Bye.
Bye.